Right, so now that I'm recording, the second step of what I was going to talk to you guys about is we have to understand at the beginning of the end of the 18th century, France is organized, classified, stratified, if you will, into three main groups called the three estates. The first estate is made up of the clergy, basically the church. The second estate is made up of nobles. The third estate is everyone else, which is kind of a bad assumption here, because a very small percentage of the population is noble. A small percentage of the population are members of the church. This isn't talking like they're parishioners. I'm talking priests, deacons, that sort of thing. The vast majority of people fall into the third estate. So basically, we have an unequal distribution of power within the society. Now, consider this. The three estates are also representative bodies in the government. The king, more or less, can do whatever he wants, but he also has sort of like a parliament that he has to call every now and again to help deal with larger problems in the country. That's called the Estates General. Basically, each of the estates elects members from within their estate to go and represent them in the Estates General. And basically, they're going to debate and politic and get laws passed. Whenever a law comes to pass, however, each estate is given one vote, and one vote only. So each estate has to have a consensus, first of all, and they have to represent basically everybody. So first and second estate's pretty easy to represent everybody. They all have something in common. Third estate, not so much. We can actually subdivide that into two other main groups, the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, also known as the sans-culottes. Basically, the wealthy and the poor. So it's not very representative at all. And in fact, one of the biggest problems was the first and the second estate almost always voted together. So they had the majority. They always did whatever they wanted to do. It was very infrequent for either the first or second estate to vote with the third estate. So the third estate would try to pass bills to try to make this a little bit more equal, and the first and the second estate would shoot it down every single time. One of the sticking points to this is the fact that the first and second estate didn't have to pay taxes. Now let's think about the logic of this for just a second. You're not going to tax the group of people with the most money. Does that make logical sense? By the way, we kind of do that in our country too, if you guys have noticed that. We don't have anything quite so crass as saying rich people don't pay taxes, but we do tax things a little bit differently. For instance, let's look at where people get their money from. Most people in this country work for money, yes? They don't, like, for instance, own farms. They just eat what's on the farm, right? They work for a living. Until you get to a certain point where you don't actually have to work. You have so much money you don't have to work. But you're still making money, by the way. You just make it through investments, yes? Well, you tax investment gains differently than we tax income. So people who make a lot of money tend to pay less taxes percentage-wise than people who make less money. So really this thing's still kind of around in one form or another. Make sense? So, what's happened is we have a system that is unequal. Now, both systems are by their very nature unequal. True equality really doesn't exist. We as a society will always set people on the top and people on the bottom. Just look at high school. You have the in crowd and the out crowd. These are sociological terms, by the way. The group that is popular and everyone kind of wants to be around and things like that, and the group that isn't part of that group. And if you notice, the in group is always much smaller than the out group. That's because for it to exist, it needs to exclude people. Consider this, private clubs. What's the only thing that you can't do? is be a part of it, unless you are a part of it. That's the only benefit you get, is you're part of the group, and you get to say, I'm part of this group. It's prestigious, and you're not part of this group. You get to hold it above people because you're better than they are, you know. We do this thing all the time. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but if you think hard about it, you'll see that we in society naturally do this. There's all kinds of ways we can stratify our society. But here's the thing. That by itself doesn't really tend to bother us too much. What bothers us is when there's inequality and we lack basic needs. You see, what we're going to see happen in France is they undergo cataclysmic economic decline. Everything goes really horribly wrong. In addition, there's not enough food. There's starvation. This plus an unequal system means revolution, often bloody and violent. We see it all around the world, the same situation time and time again. An unequal system followed up by income inequality with a lack of basic needs met, you have a war. This is what causes civil war. So just keep that in mind. So what's the situation like? Well, a lot of the economic problems are going to stem from the mismanagement of the monarchy. Now, let's go back in history for just a second. Do you all remember Louis XIV? He built Versailles and all that. Was he a good guy with money? No. He spent way more money than ever made up. Guess what? His successor, Louis XV, was even worse. Louis XVI, when he takes the throne, this is just what monarchs do in France. Keep in mind, between these monarchs, we have 100 years of history, 100 years of debt, 100 years of terrible economic practices compounding on each other, creating a sort of culture of debt. What are they spending money on? Well, a lot of things. One is war. Think about the major wars fought in the second half of the 18th century. The 7 Years' War. Who wins that war? England or France? England. So France not only loses all the money that they put in the war, they don't get anything for their efforts. They lose their territories in the New World. Secondly, the American Revolutionary War. Now, who won that? Really? The American Revolution. Who won? America. And who supported the Americans? The French. But did the French actually get anything out of this war? No. So they're spending all this money and not really getting anything out of it. Secondly, they spend money on a lavish court. Big parties, nice clothes, great food, all these types of things. So the nobles are wining and dining and partying and having a good time while everyone else is starving. You can see where that would maybe make people a little upset, yes? Now here's the thing is, it's not that Louis was evil or mean or any of that sort of thing. He wasn't starving peasants because, he wants to see people starve to death. He gets his kicks that way. It was a cultural difference that's really kind of hard to explain. So let's kind of break it down and maybe we can kind of get our heads around Louis' thinking. First of all, let's talk money, okay? What would happen if I gave you access to an infinite stockpile of money? You could buy anything you wanted. Price was no object. You could literally buy whatever you wanted. What would you do with it? Buy everything you wanted, yeah. And then what happens? No, you have infinite money. You can buy everything you want whenever you want. Well, yeah, some of you are going to probably donate, things like that. But again, you say it's going to be dissatisfying. Why?
If you have everything you want, what else could you want?
Right. Things do not have inherent value, at least not in terms of what we place upon them. Objects are just things. We get our desire for things based upon a lot of different factors. But when you take money out of the equation, suddenly it's just kind of whatever. You get kind of don't really care as much. Like, for instance, think about this. If you had infinite money, what ultimately is the difference between a $500 steak dinner and a $5 Whopper Junior meal?
Whopper.
It's just whatever you happen to want at the time, right? You're not going to think, well, gee, it's $500, so maybe I should get that, or it's going to be better. You don't think that way. It's just whatever you want at any given time. You're not going to think about price because it doesn't matter to you. Think about what that would be like going to lunch with somebody. Like if you're friends with someone who's that wealthy, they're going to be all like, oh, let's just go to this place. And like you might be lucky, like let's go to, Rallies. Like, okay, I can afford that. Let's go to this other place. It's, oh my God, I can't afford that. It's kind of awkward because they're like, I'm sorry, but they just don't think about it because to them it's no big deal. You know what I mean? So this is the different mindset that we're getting to with Louis XVI and his wife, Marie Antoinette. This is just what they did. Marie Antoinette, I feel, gets a really bad rap in history, too. When really, she wasn't responsible for anything that happened in the French Revolution. I mean, yeah, she spent a lot of money, but that's just what she did. Her mother was Maria Theresa, the Queen of Austria. She was a Habsburg. She was an important person. She marries a king. You have to spend money. Yes, this is just what you do. Consider this. Let's talk clothes. How many guys are aware of the fact that both the First Lady and the President of the United States have a clothing stipend every year? The government gives them money to buy clothes. And it's a fairly substantial amount, like $250,000 or something like that a year. You guys aware of that? Not know that? Okay. Why? Why don't we just make them buy their own clothes? The President and the First Lady. It's a symbol, isn't it? They're not people anymore. They're symbols of the country. They need to look good in front of other world leaders. Otherwise, they're going to think we're scrubs, yeah? We have to be able to present an image of wealth and prosperity. Same thing with them. Yes, ma'am.
So do they take out their pajamas too?
No, they have people do it for them. They don't necessarily go out and shop. It's probably a bad example to say they get a stipend because they don't really go spend the money. It's more like, the president needs this many suits and this many things like that and what have you, stuff like that. They don't really have to think about it. If that makes any sense. Yeah.
Like their daughter, like the daughters, do they get to shop at their favorite do they shop sort of the we shop at, or are they overly expensive?
I honestly do not know the answer to that question, but honestly, I've known some people who have a lot of money, and they will buy clothes just to buy them anywhere. I mean, a lot of times they do go buy clothing at high-end stores, buy a $500 T-shirt and things like that. It's because, again, to them money is irrelevant. You're like, oh my God, why would you spend $500 on a T-shirt? It's because it really doesn't matter to them. It's no different than spending $5 on a T-shirt for us. It's just a completely different mindset. But I don't know specifically to them. I've also known some very wealthy people who, their kids are yeah, we're not spending money. Sam Waltman, the guy who started Walmart, he wore flannel and jeans every day of his life, even though he's a millionaire. He drove the same beat-up Ford F-150 pickup truck, Ranger, not F1, Ford Ranger. And he always bought used cars. He never bought expensive cars. That's why he was rich.
His wife has rich parents, and she went out and bought a $100 swimsuit cover. She thought it was a dress, but it wasn't, and she won't go back and give it back because she's like, I don't feel like it. It just sits in the bag. I'm like, oh, $100.
Yeah. A different mindset, yeah.
I'll take it back for you.
Let's talk about something real quick here. So what's a princess's duty? What's her job?
To marry the child.
To have a child.
You have baby.
To get pregnant. Yeah, that's their sole job. You do that, you're golden. You don't do that, you basically live a life of ridicule for the rest of your life. Yeah, specifically not having a male, not having a boy. You don't have a boy, fight.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. Now, again, really what it comes down to is misogyny. If you look at the base biology, men are stronger for the most part, on average. Not always. I've seen some ladies who can, like, bench press me, and I'm fight scared. That's the way it's like, you know. But generally speaking, biologically they are. They were designed to be for reasons that are not very pleasant. If you get down to biology, what's the first purpose of the biological species? To reproduce. So that means guys have to force girls to reproduce. Which means, yeah, great. So that's unsettling and gross. But this is why they were designed that way. Now, again, societally, I hope we're past that. You know, we still have a lot of issues with that, as well as gender equality, but we're working on it. And so we break down to, why would men be more important? There's no reason. Not biologically, anyways. In fact, biologically, women should be more important. Men are expendable. Why? Because think about this. Men are stronger. So they're needed to go do physical labor. If you're talking about hunter-gatherer society, that means hunting. Hunting is dangerous. You know, if you hunt an animal that kills you, then you're not getting any food, are you? So you have a bunch of guys running out there, and they're dying, and they're also dying in wars and skirmishes, things like that. Women need to stay protected. Because one guy, if he has a bunch of girls, can reproduce an entire tribe. If it's a bunch of guys and one girl, sorry about your life. See what I'm saying? So, biologically, it doesn't make any sense either. What it really comes down to is societal. It takes something that's biological and amplifies it to something that doesn't make any sense. That makes sense. So, yeah.
So, if like you said, there was one man with all the women, if that happened and then the kids reproduced, wouldn't that make problems with the
Yeah, that's why you don't, you go basically steal women from other tribes. That was fairly common. In fact, Genghis Khan, his wife, Borta, was stolen by another tribe, and when he destroyed that tribe and got her back, she was pregnant. And it was never known whether the child was his or most likely she was in that group. So he named the child Jochi, which means uncertain. Still inherited, still became an important person, but man, that's got to be a kick in the teeth. Right? They're talking about the dog, you know. You're going.
Freshmen and sophomores.
Okay.
I need to see these students in the conference room for just a brief message. Girls, if you will bring your devices with you. Riley Child, Raven Tyndall, Monet Rice, Mary